everybody. Thanks for being here. Can you hear us okay for all the people who join remotely?
I can hear well.
Yeah, because they don't have the microphone or
anything. No, we can't hear them, but they should be able to send a question or a chat to say they can hear us. Hello. All good here. Yeah, c'est Stéphane, c'est normal. Mais il n'y a pas de raison, si Stéphane entend, honnêtement, il n'y a aucune raison que les autres personnes n'entendent pas. Okay. Donc, tu peux être dans People pour avoir la liste, mais voilà.
All right. Well, 10:05, maybe we'll get...
Victoire Dumont vient de dire OK. Ah. Donc c'est bon, tout est bon pour toi.
Awesome. Perfect. Cool. Well, thanks again, Stephan, for being connected. Just FYI, Stephan is based in Phoenix, Arizona, so it's a little bit early for him. All right, so let me share the screen so we can start. Perfect. All right. Is that okay? It's working on your end as well? Yeah. So maybe quick introduction. So my name is Fabien. I have two caps today. I have one cap. I'm working for Google and I'm in charge of the data and measurement for Google France. And I have another cap that I'm wearing today. I co-founded with Stephan PricingForThePlanet. So super excited to be here and can't wait to dig a little bit deeper into this concept. Stephan?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephan, and I wear a single cap today. I'm a pricing expert. I've been doing that for many, many years, after 25 years in industry with Saint-Gobain, Thales, and other companies. But my specialty is value-based pricing, is pricing strategy, and overall monetizing strategy for software. And I have written 12 books. Number 13 is going out in June on the topic of pricing for digital transformation. And I'm very pleased to be here with you.
All right. So maybe quick question for the group. Do you have a value proposition around sustainability in your startup today? And if you do, how do you want to monetize them? So I don't know. We have a couple of people in here with us.
Yeah.
I don't know if it will be easy on the offline group, connected group, but I don't know if so. Do you have sustainable goals or engagements? Yes. Okay. And do you have a plan to monetize them? Not yet. Okay. No. All right. Perfect. Well, I guess this webinar is perfect for the group.
I'm surprised you don't monetize it.
Sorry?
I'm surprised you don't monetize it.
Oh, yeah. So that's kind of, so we have three big topics for this morning. The first one is really about the big problems we are all facing. Then we will really talk about monetization and pricing. And then we will give you a lot of examples of like best practices and really interesting way of monetizing. Yeah.
Do you have the presentation?
Yeah. We can send it. No problem. Yeah. So what we prepare with Stephan is the way we are summarizing kind of like what we see today. We call that the 21st century post-COVID triptych. Three main problems. The first one is global warming, resource scarcity. I think we are all aware of that. Kind of scary because that's the first time we have that much trouble. And then that's a metaphor, but for us, we see one problem, which is consumer expectations are changing a lot. companies are not changing much. A lot of words, a lot of concepts. And then the third one is, and I think that was interesting to have your feedback. It's like pricing is still stuck in the 19th century. It's still mostly cost-based, cost-plus pricing, which is very far from our digital, always connected, very high velocity that we are seeing today. So if we start with the first one, I think we can go quick on this one. We are all aware that it's not fake news or anything like that. We have a global warming problem. We have 1 degree more in like 100 years than we did in the past 1,000 years. So we clearly have a problem with global warming. What we like to, because it's always confusing to talk about global warming, so we like to use some example. That's the Power Lake, 1999, 2014. We are running out of water. Same thing with the glacier in Alaska, 1941, 2004. That's evidence. Another interesting, actually, we did an event with Google and the Circular and Renault Group with Nicolas Vanier. And the way he was describing global warming was to use the drunken forest concept. So Nicolas Vanier is an explorer, and he went to Siberia, and he noted that those forests, because of the permafrost, is actually shrinking. The trees are actually completely falling down. And it's coming from a very remote place where you would not think that they are much affected. That's quite the opposite. They are more affected than anywhere else. And those ecosystems are very fragile. So at least for me, it was like kind of like a big wake-up call to say, okay, we are way more in danger than what we can think, living in Paris and taking our bike to, Station F or those kind of things. Another big one, which is a scarcity of resources. I don't know if you see, but there is a very interesting report about the circularity between circular economy and Deloitte. They are talking about the consumption of resources. 2016, 89 tons of raw material used. COP26, 101. The forecast is 170, 184 by 2050. So we are not going into the right direction. But let's make it clear. You have the link here in case you want to go a little bit deeper on this one. So that's kind of the first thing. We're all aware we have a big global warming problem. Now, if we look actually at how the consumer are changing, so I'm jungling between my different apps. What's very interesting, if we take a lot of Google data, we see a big change into the user expectation and user researches. You can see a bunch of examples here: climate change, climate grief. So nostalgia is actually the feeling of being depressed about the climate, and it's breakout. So it means it's plus 5,000%. So you can tell it's an emerging trend. So people actually
look at this word on Google.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Because you need to know it first to type it.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Actually, it's a thing actually emerging a lot. So it's even more than just thinking about it. People are feeling depressed about the climate change.
And the evolution of those percentages on which period is it?
It's versus the last 5 years. So it's not that long ago. Yeah. We have crazy number if we take the past. I think we can go up to 2024 on Google Trends, and the numbers are just crazy. What's interesting at the same time, we see a lot of behavior change. Like we took this one, why this one is because we see a pricing impact and a sustainability impact. So a lot of used second-hand that's becoming very trendy, and it's all over US, UK, France. All over, people are looking for a cheap way, a sustainable way, and to combine both at the same time. This is actually kind of very interesting for you, is that when we are looking at the financial reports we looked at Carrefour, Nestlé, L'Oréal, and Société Générale, so big French companies. They are talking about 2030 product development, durability, a lot of concepts. But when we look at what the users are looking for, nobody's looking for sobriety. No, that's kind of, at least we have the data saying, nobody's doing that, but people are looking for concrete way of having an impact. Flea markets, reduce, recycle, second-hand, vintage. And actually, that's kind of the paradox we want to show today. It's like most of the company are talking about sustainability. Very little company are doing anything about that. And at the same time, there is a huge missed opportunity because the users, they want something now, and then they want something concrete. If we go even one step further, there is a very interesting study from SKP. They ask consumer, what about sustainability in your purchasing behavior? And we see that for 60% of the consumer, they consider that sustainability is important. And it's actually for 50%, they go one level further, and they consider it a top 5 value driver. So, and it's a very emerging trend. So sustainability is becoming more and more important. And I think you will all be interested by this number, this figure, is that when we ask people, they are ready to pay or to have a premium of 25% versus normal price. But they consider they could pay up to 25% more for a sustainable product versus a normal product or non-sustainable product. And again, if we are coming back to this duality between the big companies and the expectation, almost nobody is tapping into this pure financial pocket to monetize sustainability.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
This percentage of this 25% comes again from Google Trends?
No, this is coming from the SKP. So Simon, it's a pricing company. Sorry.
Oh, no, sorry.
Simon Kutcher.
Okay.
Pricing consulting group.
Okay.
So the reality, if I may, it's probably not 25%. So this is an average. And most companies will not do a very clear segmentation of, their customer base or consumer base, and truly find the pockets of customers that are very, very interested by, the circular aspect of their products and sustainability in general. So you may have customers that are willing to pay 50% more. You buy a pair of socially responsible socks, and then they donate a pair of socks to someone else. So, and you pay for both. So it's a lot of money, but you're willing to pay for it. But the vast majority of customers will say, I pay zero. It's part of the product, and I don't see why I would pay a premium. So there's a lot of writing right now about how much of a premium and why should sustainable products be more expensive. So there's going to be people who pay 100% more and people who pay zero. And then the second point is there is a huge difference between what people declare and what actually you can derive from pricing research. So we need to validate that number, and you do that by doing willingness to pay research and by doing conjoint analysis. And that's the best way to derive, the more quantitative way to derive the willingness to pay.
Yeah. And what we see, not just B2C, because most of people are thinking, yeah, sustainable is great for B2C company. Actually, we see the same trend in B2B. So this one is another study done by Management Consulting, but very interesting to see that, again, coming back to this duality, everybody's expecting the suppliers to be sustainable, but actually only half of them are leveraging sustainability as a value. So it means there is a huge opportunity actually to tap into this value driver around sustainability. And finally, the third problem is pricing. Stephan, I don't want, this is coming from your book, so maybe you can cover this slide.
Yeah, so, in 2019, I studied the global Fortune 500 companies, went through 18 months of research and found that, most companies in the global Fortune 500 do not have a pricing function. It's actually about 22% of companies that have a serious team of, imagine a company that has $200 billion in sales, and they have maybe either 0 pricing people or maybe 2 or 3 running the show. So, And it's worse in industrial companies when you look at 15% of the industrial companies are doing pricing in a way that they have a function, right? So that, that brings the question then, who does pricing? And generally speaking, it'll be fragmented between finance, accounting, sales. And when this is the case, pricing is neglected, it's cost plus, and really it's really not focused on optimization. So you move to the startup world, and you see that it's interesting because it's a nugget that was developed by a research company, and it went viral. And the nugget is startups spend more time discussing toilet paper than discussing pricing. And it's in the 70% of startups that do not do monetization work. They will start with technology, software development, and then eventually will spread something to the world and see what stick. So it's I would say it's a dramatic picture of the pricing penetration still in this day and age. Now, recently with inflation exploding, we've seen quite a bit of interest and change in the topic. So it's good news, but still, I would say, so there's pricing and there's monetization, but a lot of work needs to be done in monetization. So when you go to sustainability, which is now one of the biggest, latest trend, it's pretty much non-existent. Even companies who have dedicated pricing teams, these pricing teams are not involved in the sustainability discussion.
All right. And I think building on what you said, Stephan, inflation is a big driver. So now more and more people are talking about pricing, and they understood it's very important. But when you look at the commodity prices or the price of oil, you can see this huge volatility, which now you can tell that cost plus approach is not working anymore because it's too volatile. So it's creating a lot of friction for startups and big companies. Another study that could be interesting. So Implement asked 100 CEOs and senior executives about how they are responding to. We talked about it like COVID-19, the recession, high inflation, and actually they came up with this matrix with maturity and importance. And what they figured out is that green value proposition and pricing strategy are very high importance and very low maturity. So actually they are confirming what we just said. It's those two things are very important for the world that is coming, but at the same time there is very low maturity. And I think it's coming up to what you said between spending more time talking about toilet paper than talking about pricing. That's definitely what we see here. And I don't know if you can see it well, but you have also digital, so digital customer engagement, digitizing customer experience, which is kind of the middle. And then you have all the customer insights, customer loyalty, go-to-market strategy. But it's very interesting to see how very far is the green value proposition and pricing strategy.
Yeah.
So we tried. Oh, sorry, Stephan, go ahead.
No, I mean it's a second thought. I mean, and I'm guilty. I was the CEO of a company for 5 years, and we did building materials, and we launched a couple of green, quote unquote, green products, and we totally improvised, and both of them were total failures. So I can tell you that, and that was about 10 years ago. So there's still a lot of horror stories when it comes to doing some professional work around sustainability and the core value prop around green. So lots of work to be done, and that's beyond pricing. It's all go to market.
So we tried actually to summarize. You will see in the slide, we tried to put the golden nugget. So I think we have 6 golden nuggets for this morning. That's the first one. Really, pricing and monetization capabilities and green value proposition should be your top priority. Whatever, if you are a huge, Fortune 2000 company or a startup, I think they both apply. I think, Stephan, you wanted to define more like the difference between pricing and monetization, right?
Yeah, and that's a big, I think it's important to know. because monetization is a bigger concept than pricing. Pricing is part, obviously, of monetization, but so monetization is the extraction of profit and revenue from assets that you have in your company. So it's really about turning assets into revenue, and assets are tangible and intangible. So you would have, for example, your servers, your IoT offers, and your cybersecurity packages. All that stuff obviously is going to turn into sales. But also intangible is your brand, your sustainability effort. How you turn that into some kind of profit, right? So is it brand equity? Is it pricing? Is it additional margin that you could charge your customers? So, but when you look at monetization, it's really going from the price setting all the way to collecting cash, right? So it's quote to cash, where you would look at how do you bill your customer, and do you bill them the right way? For example, if you do usage-based pricing, where you're getting paid by click, or you're getting paid by a linear yard or meter. Then you have to be able to get the data to price, to invoice your customer, and to collect through crypto or payments online. So it's because, I mean, you could do all you want, you have to get paid, right? You got more and more companies that are getting paid in cryptocurrencies, and so monetization is wider, and it's important for you to understand it's not just price.
So kind of just to summarize the first part, problem one, global warming, resource scarcity. Problem two, which is probably for us today, the biggest problem, people are changing and we don't react much to that. And problem three, of course, what we discussed, the pricing maturity is very low and actually is creating a lot of barriers for the growth, especially in the startup ecosystem. And on top of that, you have kind of like, you have no choice because the lawmakers are actually changing a lot. You probably heard about CSRD. It's coming very fast. You have actually coming from the VC ecosystem as well. The UN actually just published the 6 principles about responsible investment and ESG. So between getting money that will be an obligation to be kind of sustainable, and at the same time to apply new laws into the way you will actually report about your business. Our view on that is that instead of being a constraint, it should be better to monetize it and actually to leverage it to increase your top line and bottom line. But so again, coming back to the topic of today, pricing could be a solution. Stephan, you want to present this one, or I mean, this one is more for you, maybe open question. What kind of like pricing methodology are you using, and how often are you changing your prices? I don't know if one of you can say something about that or have a POV on this one.
Well, are you actually at the stage where you have a monetization and pricing strategy? Because I know sometimes, you may be in development or in launch mode, and it may not be clear for you.
Maybe just a different question, like maybe raise your hand. So how many times are you changing your prices? Is it less than every month or more than every month? We say more than every month. Oh, so you're changing? No, you are not changing your pricing that much, right? No, okay. Which is normal. Coming back to what we discussed, which is normal, it's what we see. But again, which is kind of weird because we talk about inflation, we talk about high, raw material elasticity in terms of like pricing. So it's actually strange or not, maybe not optimal to keep kind of like a fixed price all over the time, because you're actually taking away your margin when prices are super high.
Well, this is why if you look at startups today, and especially in the software space, the SaaS service, software as a service, it used to be like most companies would publish their pricing online. today it's probably less than 40%, because exactly that problem. Prices are becoming very obsolete right away. You don't want to be stuck with a price that's online. So most of them will say, hey, contact for quote, unless you're product-led growth, which everything is online, you can download and buy. But the companies that are more in the sales growth, sales SLG mode or motion, it's a sales rep type of engagement. But generally speaking, in this world, you wouldn't change price every month. You would probably look at 3 times, 4 times a year, and that for you, it's important to keep in mind that your discounts will change, but not maybe your list price. So that's a little bit more advanced than maybe we should keep it simple today. But there's a lot of pricing is a very, very big field, and I've studied it for 15 years, and I'm still learning every day. So, because when you get into data, you get into psychology of pricing, it's a lot to be discussed there.
You want to cover?
Yeah. So this is a very, very there's a few statistics in the world on pricing that keep circulating around for probably a decade now. This one is one from McKinsey. And price is the biggest lever in the company, and whether you're a startup or a Fortune 100 company, a 1% improvement in price, all things keeping it being the same, it's an 11% increase in profit, right? So you can net get that kind of results and return on cost cutting, on volume increase, on reduction of headcount. It is one of the most powerful levers, and unfortunately, it is also psychologically people perceive it as a very risky and difficult lever to implement. So the second nugget is a Warren Buffett quote. And Warren Buffett is a famous investor. You may know him, but it's all about pricing power, and it's got quotes circulating around pricing that people use over and over and over. But the reality is, it's not as easy as saying I'm going to raise my price 1% and my profit is going to increase. There's a lot of things that you need to do even before pricing to get it right. So, and that's why you have professionals like us to help from the value proposition all the way to the pricing tactics. Whether it's sustainability or not, it's something that should be core to your startup. So, next slide. So it's around sustainability. It's we start with really a monetization strategy. How do we want our initiatives? So whether they are in the core of the startup of the business or adjacent to the core, maybe for example, adjacents would be, well, you have a main offer, and then you may have a sustainable offer or line of products that will be more sustainable. Or your entire startup is around sustainability. You need to look at, okay, how do I make money with this? And that's the heart of the value prop. And we recommend typically to use for that a business model canvas or a lean canvas related to a value prop, right? Where your sustainability is at the core. And then eventually use a monetization canvas that really are looking at extraction of whether it's a price, it's a fee, it's a percentage of commission, it's going to be any source of revenue that will be feeding into your company income, and not keeping in mind that today you extract revenue from services, from software, from product, from consulting, you name it. It's not just product, and trust me, lots of companies are still stuck in product mode. So then obviously you price well, and you price based on value, hopefully, because cost plus in our world is not sustainable, because you see that sometimes costs are going up dramatically, sometimes costs are going down dramatically. And right now we're probably at the beginning of a cost down spiral, because inflation is so high that governments are intervening through interest rates and to calm down the economies. But The whole point of all of this is to make more profit and then to be able to reinvest in your innovation of sustainability. And then you improve your value prop, making even more differentiated, innovate on new product and services, and then the wheel goes on and on. So it's really a wheel of sustainability, and it's it's like any other business. You have to keep your value proposition and your differentiation very, very refreshed, and be at the top of the customer mind. But along the way, you have to price better because you deserve it, your company deserves it, and some of that profit you can return to your stakeholders. So a lot of companies, for example, Patagonia or others, will donate their revenues or part of their profit to sustainability charities or causes, and that obviously improve the pricing power and the brand equity of these companies. So it is a sustainable wheel, but it starts with very good monetization, and for that there are tools that we use, and tools that are well recognized. For example, the Strategizer business model canvas, the Lean canvas from Lean Stack, which I'm sure you've seen before.
Yeah.
So,
Stephan, we just have a question. Sorry, you cannot see it.
No, I can see that.
I understand the global approach, but in this approach, how do you take into account the competitive landscape? Because I understand that you can differentiate yourself, but most of the time your competitors leverage the same type of competitive advantages. So how do you take into account competitors and the fact that you have to come with best value and best price at the end?
You get the question?
Yeah. So on the point number 2, when you price well, you price based on value. And this is the heart of value-based pricing. Value-based pricing is always relative to competition. So obviously when you do your value prop is differentiated. That's the whole purpose of innovation, right? And generally speaking, your startup should be differentiated because you're solving a problem, you're solving a customer pain, and hopefully you're solving it better than competition. So, and if you look at the Lean canvas or the business model canvas, it's all about differentiation. Otherwise you quickly go into price discussions, and you enter in price wars. You see that in the startup world, like Uber and Lyft, and they constantly compete on price, right? And that is not sustainable. So you have to assume that in your business model and in your value prop, you highly differentiated and you do something better than competition. Then on the step number 2, you're gonna calculate the value that you bring versus competition, which is called differentiation value. And then that allows you to extract more from the market. So you're right that if you're the same as competition, it's going to be a difficult situation.
And maybe 2 things to complement. One is the Patagonia example. And I think it's coming up to what we just discussed, which is actually you can tap into stuff that the competitors are not doing. It's what Patagonia did like 10 years ago, being sustainable. So I think the sustainability and all the intangible value and asset that Stephan was talking about, you can actually monetize that, and actually you can explain that to the market. Because what we see a lot is like the differentiation, it's a question of explanation, and we see most of actually the sales team, they are not capable to explain this differentiation to the market. So you start a price war on 2 different things, and nobody's capable to explain that it should not have a price war going because those things are different. That's one thing. Yeah. The second thing is actually different way of like a business model. So I give you like a very example one. It's a very good example. It's Amazon. So Amazon used to be an e-commerce. Then now AWS is actually where they're making most of the money. Now advertising is where they're making a lot of money. A very good example, like Too Good To Go. They're actually thinking about going to IPO, etc. They are thinking about how do I monetize all this data I have? How can I monetize all these audiences that I have? So in this monetization piece, that means you need to go above what you are traditionally doing and think about other way of monetizing all the assets that you have, but you maybe didn't think about it, or you don't anticipate, or again, coming back to users. For example, the second-hand market, LVMH started that a couple of years ago, and it's a huge missed opportunity because they missed actually all the startup that did that at the core. It's the same thing, actually. You can monetize that and be very differentiated because you won't make all your money on one product, but you will monetize all these other services. And we'll talk about, we have Philips as an example, Michelin as an example. So we have a bunch of examples that we will look at.
But it's interesting because even today in the digital transformation world, a lot of the traditional message around income generation and profit generation from the digital offering, right? Whether it's SaaS or it's IoT, more and more you could look at this today and they've changed their messages to more of a sustainable message. So for example, if you sell an IoT solution to smart building, right? Or you sell an IoT solution to oil and gas, predictive maintenance, right? A lot more now the message is around carbon footprint reduction, reduction of emission, extension of the product life cycle, right? Repairability of equipment, reusability of equipment. So it's in the last 2 years you've seen a dramatic change, which means in the value proposition, some of the value drivers have changed. And now, where sustainability was maybe a second thought, now it's becoming a top 3 differentiator. But the bottom line is, what does that mean for the customer? The so what? Is the customer willing to pay for the sustainable offer? And some of them are, some aren't. Some aren't. So some are in search of compliance. So they need to have suppliers that can help them in their net the footprint and the carbon zero objective. So it's the last 2 years has changed the game for sure. And obviously regulations as well, but you price that differently. And that's a key point is now that, for example, in IoT, in oil and gas, sustainability is maybe a top 3 value driver. How do you monetize that? How do you extract price premium from that? So it's quite interesting that now digital transformation and sustainability are kind of merging a little bit, and it's becoming more of a common thing to see both of them on the same value prop.
Stephan, we have another question in the room.
Okay.
The Patagonia or LVMH is making a good messages for they're doing the sustainability, but so that kind of actions make the virtual circulation like the monetize and price well and then keep it out again. But how about the supply company like some companies for the supplying the thread for the Patagonia or supplying with zippers? They are out of the circulation, so they don't have any bargaining powers with their big brand like LVMH, someone who is supplying the packaging for LVMH. So in this case, what should they do?
Well, I mean, let me start maybe. So first of all, you have to be compliant, right? If you're a supplier of thread or you're a supplier of textile or supplier of plastic to LVMH or other, they will ask you, what is your sustainability strategy? Because they have one, and in their procurement process, they will ask you for compliance. So if you want to play with these companies like Patagonia, and if you want to play with Interface or Decathlon in France, you better have a sustainability strategy so that you fit with your customer strategy. The second is any supplier in the world could have a sustainability offer. There's different ways of doing textile. You could have inorganic, not using of pesticides. You could have electric driven machinery. So there's a lot of things you can do to make yourself more sustainable, and to justify to your procurement in front of you a premium, because at the end of the day they need that sustainability component in their offer because they want to be compliant as well. So if you're in the ecosystem and you can play well in that supply chain ecosystem, then you have a better chance to succeed. So, everybody in the value chain, eventually in the supply chain, will have to be providing some sustainability and impact number. And the more we go in the next 5 years, the chances are it's going to be require more and more by these big companies.
Thank you.
And that applies to startup, by the way. And that could be a very key differentiator. So, as I mentioned before, unfortunately, lots of companies don't have a pricing team, and that's fine. Someone, maybe is assigned the responsibility of pricing. If not, then usually it's a founder of the startup that does the pricing work. So that's fine. But if you do have a pricing team, and if there's a pricing expert, they need to be involved in the sustainability discussion, because we need to define. It cannot just be a compliance play. Compliance is great. It allows you to play in the sandbox. But at the end of the day, for any company that has invested in the sustainability of their offer, and sometimes you spend quite a bit of R&D doing that, you need to be able to look at monetization. There is no reason, nothing stopping you to monetize with the help from your pricing team. So it's really breaking down the silos and linking monetization strategies to sustainability strategies. And this is where we come in, because a lot of the time, a lot of pricing teams are not in place, or the pricing teams is totally not involved, and we need to help them, connect to the sustainability strategy. And by the way, the ESG dashboards and all the accounting of impact that is done by many companies. So let's keep up. We have a comment here. There is a comment by Joachim. Pricing for sustainability is about companies taking responsibility that goes all the way from sourcing to price tag on the shelf. That's correct. That's a very good point. Besides pricing excellence, you see the chat or not?
No, we cannot.
Okay. Besides pricing excellence to enable smart and green investment, I believe that we should also tap into consumer behavioral pricing, and through pricing enabling customers to make better and more sustainable choices. And that's correct, because it's, frankly, it's still a new space. We have to help them understand the benefit of these products and influence them on, making the right choice. And it's, for me, my son is gluten-free, right? He's allergic to gluten. You go to the store and you still have to look at all these special products. Where are they, right? And it's the same for, you go to a shop that has some sustainability green products, and it's difficult to find. And I think we need to help the customers, have the choice to buy quote unquote green products. So and teaching them a little bit, influencing them to buy the greener products. So that's a good point, Joachim. Thank you for posting. So, you look at the monetization wheel that I mentioned before, and it really starts with, it's a full wheel going from, where you're starting, what's your assessment today, where are you in the sustainability maturity curve, to, looking at value drivers, doing a value model, which includes your sustainability value drivers, assessing your willingness to pay from customers, which is essential, and then designing a go-to-market strategy that, as we discussed, is aimed at a financial outcome. The so what of doing that. Why should the customer care, and how much money, are they willing to pay for it? And then how much money can we get from our sustainability offer? Then we execute the pricing, and the more we do that, the more we generate data points, the more we can do data-driven sustainable pricing. And that's a key. You look at Good to Go, for example, or some of these reusable fashion textile website. They have millions of data points, and from the data point, from the analytics, we can derive not only innovation, but willingness to pay and bundles and new offers new services, new functionalities, and that's the beauty of being data-driven today. So let's look at a little bit one by one so that we explain a little bit of what's behind it. So it is obviously the prerequisite is a circular economy, and this is where we get into facing the resistors, right? The detractors, and when they tell you, well, how can plastic be sustainable, right? And and a circular economy is quite interesting, because I've run into companies that are really dedicated to making sure their products are reusable, recyclable. For example, a company called Interface in the US, they do carpet. And carpets, it's full of polyester and glues, and the backing could be in polypropylene, so it's all plastic. So obviously they're going to buy some recycled plastic pellets to put to increase the recycled content in their carpet. But the bottom line is the product is still installed, and the product is there for 20 years. And if you don't, collect it after, when it's changed, you're not doing circular activities. So Interface launched a service that they would go to a job site and pick up the carpet and then reuse it. Take the carpet and, as much as possible, recycle that into their process. And that's really the cradle to cradle, right? Trying to make sure that we reuse as much as possible what we produce in the environment. Now, are they charging for the service? That's a different question. And are they charging for the reprocessing of carpet? I don't think they do, but they're aiming at monetizing that eventually. So more and more companies are doing this, from pallet collection, so you look at the pallets being used in the industrial world, and we're talking millions and millions of pallets that go to landfill. And wood, frankly, wood is highly recyclable. So you could pick up the pallets and do all kinds of things with them, reuse them as pallets, or grind and do some powders that can be used in other materials. So you want to comment on that, Fabien?
Yeah. So on this one, it's because we keep talking about sustainability. So sustainability is great for reporting. It's great for financial statements, but when we really look at solution, actually that's where circular economy makes sense. So this image is kind of like a summary. Ellen MacArthur developed actually the butterfly framework, which is way more in depth. We put this one because we didn't know the maturity in the room, but like an easy way actually to challenge and actually to create the differentiation. That was kind of your question, is to start from this reuse, remanufacture, recycle, reduce, actually to create all the differentiation. And for us, it's kind of a low-hanging fruit for most of the companies today, is to look at that and then go into the framework to go even deeper. Yeah. Actually, it's just the explanation. It's the explanation of what circular economy is, and actually, you will see it's actually a bunch of loops that look like kind of a butterfly. If you look at Ellen MacArthur circular economy, that's probably the first thing you will find on Google. So it's just a way of explaining what is circular economy, what you can do in a circular economy world. And I think this one is actually coming back to your question about an ecosystemic way of thinking about pricing. Go ahead, Stephan.
No, it's important to. It's more and more in the future. If you're not compliant in the ecosystem, you're going to be left out of the, of the game. Look at aviation. More and more we're talking about, hey, one of the most polluting sector is, the aerospace and aviation. So now we're looking at, can we fly a Airbus 340 with cooking oil, recycled cooking oil? Can we do electric planes, etc.? What about the materials in the plane? Can we do recycling carpet, etc.? But if you're a supplier or a startup and you're not playing in the sustainable, sustainability space, Airbus and Boeing at some point, they're going to kick you out of the ecosystem. They're not going to allow you to play. So it is important to, if you want to sell to these companies or other companies, to look at what's important in that ecosystem, whether it's flooring materials or aerospace or cybersecurity. Are you bringing something to the table as far as a carbon footprint or new materials, reusability, recyclability of your servers, and you name it, right? And it's really, if you don't, more and more you will not play in the sandbox. And it's critical to think about this when you design your business model. And if you look at the business model canvas, you would have some key activities you have to do and key resources to use. And this is where, for example, if you're in the plastic space, you're going to have to look at recyclable plastics. You're going to have to look at natural component-based plastics like potatoes, or that will be expected from you. So when we look at the value drivers and what's important to the customer and customers at the segment level, you're going to have to run a value proposition canvas. I'm sure all of you have heard of Strategizer and the CVP canvas, and really is going deep into the customer profile. So we go through exercises where we really try to understand for a consumer or for a customer in B2B that really needs sustainability or needs some aspect of circularity or recyclability. What are the pains and gains? What are we trying to do? Is it a compliance play? Is it they want to maximize their profit? They want to, they want to change the world, like Patagonia. So we run a canvas, and we make sure that as we play in an ecosystem, that we solving real pains and gains, right? And that's the heart of the matter. If you're 100% sustainability based, you better have a very strong value prop. Right. And you need to worry about, is the problem critical today? And then is it truly unsatisfied? And is there willingness to pay? So you do that in the context of value prop. So that's, that triangle here. And the process usually takes a couple of hours, and you come out with the top 3 pains, top 3 gains that customers, find tangible, it's important, it's unsatisfied, and they're willing to pay for it. Now imagine that at the heart of your startup, and this is the name of the game. And then you go into the next step is, what do you do better than competition? So this is where you do a customer-centric value model. So this is called an estimation, an EVE, economic value estimation, framework, where you look at yourself versus competition, and in green, you look at your top positive differentiators. What do you do better than competition? Now, maybe your competitors don't do green or sustainability, then that becomes for you a differentiator because you're doing it and your competitors don't do it. So you could charge a premium, maybe through brand equity, through maybe the net zero contribution, the compliance to some norms. But if your competitors do that, then you have to find it. How do you do it better than them, right? And obviously that's a difficult discussion because you need to understand truly what your competitors are doing. But in this value model, you come up with a value pool. So if you look at this chart, is $15 per product. This is what we're looking for. What is the value pool that I could charge potentially the customer based on my differentiation with competitors? And then you're going to share that value pool. So this is the heart of value-based pricing. This is what we do. I do with companies from 3M all the way to Thales and satellites, but more and more we're going to have to do that in the sustainability space, because to explain and extract the value we deliver to the customer, including sustainability. So quite advanced. And this is where you start doing some research, willingness to pay. You do customer interviews. You identify the contribution you do to the customer operations, and then you come up with a fully validated value model.
Stephan, I think it's going back to your question. I think having the clarity and having actually the maturity of knowing exactly knowing your competition pricing, because you will be surprised, most of the company, they don't know that much about the competitor pricing. So knowing exactly your competitor one, competitor two, competitor three, where they are, what are the value drivers, and exactly your unique additional value compared to them, and not doing that, once every 3 years, but doing that, kind of like all the time. That's really where you are creating differentiation.
In the B2B business, most of the time you spend your time bidding. And while bidding, obviously you're in contact with your competitors on price competition. So you know about your competitors' price all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's that. I wish it was the case, but here's the problem that happens in B2B. In B2B, there is a published list price. There's a set of discounts that also you could get from your distributors. But to get to the net price, once the negotiation is done, it's really difficult to know the net price. What is actually paid by the customers after rebates, after concessions, after free products, after you name it. So I agree with you, and to a certain extent, list price by a discount, you could find that out, but the net final price is difficult to know. In the B2G world, in the government world, a lot of the pricing are published because it's a government regulation requirement that they publish bids. So you still need to do some research. On the online world, you could do scrubbing. You have software that will find, including Google, that will find prices of competition online. That's easier because it's automatic and it's self-service. It gets trickier in B2B.
I can share a very personal story on Google. We have no idea how much TikTok is charging, how much Amazon is charging, how much the TV is charging. So actually, even Google is supposed to be quite advanced, and they are not advanced on this one. It's a guess. Huh? We know. Oh, it's more or less. We don't really know, but there is no actually time and dedication spent on this one. No, it's very true. But I think most of the company, I used to work a lot. I used to work at Accenture, and I can tell that we didn't know when Deloitte was actually above or below. We didn't do that. So it was mostly based on ADR, so average daily rate. That was kind of an obligation from our leadership, and then it was a bunch of rebate, how bad we wanted to sell. So we would dictate. It's very hard to find company quite advanced on saying, here is why you should be paid more. BCG is actually quite good because they have the pricing power to say, here is my price. We know we are more expensive. Here is why we are more expensive.
As you said, in the B2B business, the introspective aspect is most important, and we should have to lean on that aspect.
Absolutely.
So our point here as a golden nugget number 3 is to do your best to dollarize the value of your sustainability engagements, whether it's products, it's communication campaigns, it's the brand, and dollarizing means quantifying the financial impact for your customers. What do we do for the customer? So, and there's methods that you could use to quantify. I mean, the heart of it is the EVE, which we just showed, but there is also ROI calculations. There is total cost of ownership. There's about 6 techniques that you can use to dollarize. It's quite advanced, but it requires customer data. But at the end of the day, it's important for you to understand the willingness to pay, how much you can get from your offer. If you don't do that kind of quantification, then you're going to do the wet finger analysis, which is pretty much a gut feel on how much of a premium or how to, you could charge based on your great work and sustainability. So it's a recommendation. This is, the book that we showed earlier, the dollarization differentiation value, that explained the whole methodology to do this. But it's I would say it's advanced marketing.
So who wants to answer this time? Do you have any volunteer? When is the last time you ask about your clients regarding pricing?
I mean, B2B business, if you go bidding all the time, you always get feedback most of the time.
You do, but do you ask exactly, what was the price of the competition? Why? Was it because it was a value or a price?
For me, you can get it. Sometimes customers don't want to say it, but most of the time they agree because they acknowledge the work you did to answer to the bidding process. So most of the time you get feedback if you ask for it.
So there is a famous say in pricing is, if you sell and you don't have any pricing complaints from your customers, you're underpriced. Generally speaking, 20% of your customers should bitch about pricing. They should call you and tell you too expensive, or they should tell, and that's a healthy ratio, right? So think about that. I have case study after case study where we launched products in my former lives and we sold a lot and no pricing complaints, and I was like, dang it, we left money on the table, because we need to have people complaining about your price.
No, I agree with you. I acknowledge that if you can get feedback from your bidding on a one-per-one basis, it's easy to do it. The most difficult is to capitalize on those feedbacks and then build a strategy. Then this internal process is less obvious than just getting
100%.
I think you can easily get feedback, or at least in the B2B business.
And even B2C, if you want to.
Yeah, it's not the same process.
It's not, yeah. Stephan?
Yeah, I was taking notes. That's good. So then obviously you go into willingness to pay assessment, because once you know in the value model what is the potential. Oh, sorry, what is it?
No, he was saying that he wanted to be quoted into your next book.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm a sponge, man. I absorb everything. So, I mentioned the value.
Wait, we have a question online.
So it's Josh who asks, what's next when your clients complain your price?
Okay, so what's next is your I would say you reintroduce your value prop, right? So typically, it's a customer is not happy about your price. Maybe they don't understand the value you deliver. So you re-explain your value prop, your value drivers, and you re-explain what you're doing for them, how much value you bring to them, right? So, and then you exchange again, and you stay firm on your price. That's a key. Now, if you have a price buyer in front of you, and this is why you do segmentation. Lots of companies don't do a segmentation process. And in any market today, you will have between 30 and 40% of price buyer. All they want is price. You could show all the value and the sustainability and the kumbaya that you want. All they care is price. Then you have two choices. You fire them, you don't sell to them. So when they complain, you tell them, you know what, it's not a good fit. I'm not going to sell to you. And the second one is you right size your offer. You modify your offer to match their price requirements, which is kind of if you're doing a software, it's kind of difficult, because you have to think about modularity of your software and be able to do bricks that you can extract and feature gating. But at the end, it's a choice. Some customers will always complain about price. Then it becomes a question, do I sell to them or not, right? What is my cost to serve? Am I willing to do that business at the lower margin? But it comes back for me to the value prop and the business model. Is my value prop to serve every customer, or is my value prop to serve the customers that I really care about? And if someone complains about price, maybe I'll let them go, because you can't satisfy every customer in the world. So it's a philosophical discussion. Now, unfortunately, too many companies want to play with every customer, and then it totally confuses the market. So that's my answer. But having a fair amount of complaints is healthy, but because you learn from them. And if you learn from them, then you could change your value prop. Maybe your value prop is not well established or well, backed up by numbers, and it's an opportunity for you to go back and really reestablish your value. Anyway, so slide before in the EVE, I explained the value pool. So my total value versus competition. And then on the next slide is, well, how much you capture in that value pool. And for that, you will do, pricing research, conjoint analysis, Van Westerdorp, I have a tough time, pronouncing that, which is willingness to pay price sensitivity meter. So there is methodology, and we do this, and so you don't decide on the price, with a wet finger or qualitatively. You use science to do that, and right now there's awesome software online that you could use to do this for you, and you can get the results in 2 or 3 days. So it's highly dynamic, but that this is what I mentioned before. You could ask the customer, how much are you willing to pay for XYZ, or a sustainable product or circularity? They'll tell you 20%, maybe. But when you do this kind of research, you derive it from the statistics, and maybe it's only 12% or 8%, or it's 30%. And then you do that by segment. Those who really valued sustainability versus those who don't. Is there a difference in willingness to pay? Then you could charge differently by, segment. So there is science out there, and it's part of our pricing research toolkit, but it's used in a lot of consumer research, in a lot of, all the CPGs, believe it or not, Coca-Cola of the world, and all do this kind of research on a daily basis. So quite powerful.
Yeah, maybe just to complement on this one, a willingness to pay. So we believe it's kind of a low-hanging fruit for most of the companies, because almost nobody is doing it. And it's getting even more complex because, a couple of years ago, nobody was thinking about different way of charging. So it was only like, okay, here is the price, it's in euro and in US dollars. But now you have all this complexity of not only asking for a fair price or the best price, but it's also asking, how do you want to pay for it? What currency? Do you want to use cryptocurrency, for example? Do you want to use Bitcoin? And we see actually a massive trend of company worried to go into this space, which is a missed opportunity or not, but they don't go into this willingness to pay assessment, to ask and get feedback from their client. Coming back to what Stephan was saying about segmentation, they are missing this segmentation piece of the market, and maybe they have a segment that would love to use cryptocurrency, but they don't do it because they don't have the insights.
Well, and they don't have the payment gateway to do that, which is something else. Like if you look at all the development in the metaverse, you have to have crypto payment, so, and it requires special billing software. So there's a tech stack consideration in the back. So pricing cannot be a second thought, and monetization in general have to be front and center in the startup value proposition and the business model canvas. So if you have not used a business model canvas or a lean canvas, I highly recommend you do that. And then at the end of the day, we talked about changing prices, but if you have a product roadmap or technology roadmap, you need to have a pricing roadmap, because your pricing will change with your product. And again, pricing is a vast domain. There's a lot of pricing innovation you could do the same way as you would do product innovation. New features, new services, new bundles, freemium models, pay for what you want to pay, so pay as you go. It's just endless. But our point is, you can't have a very dynamic product roadmap or product strategy and a very static pricing strategy. It doesn't work.
Yeah, on this one, I'm sure what's funny is we do a lot of those talks, and every time we talked about Marty Kagan and we talked about product development, and all the startups are like, oh yeah, it's awesome, blah, blah, blah. And then we said, do you apply that to pricing? And then, nobody's talking about it, because it's like, yeah, we do UR. Are you asking about pricing in UR? Oh, no, I'm just talking about my product. You do, all these things that, Marty Kagan is pushing around product. There is nothing related to pricing, which is a shame, because coming back to what Stephan was saying, like you increase by 1% your pricing, it's an 11% increase in operating margin. So can you imagine the impact on your bottom line and on your financial statements? But everybody's focused on the product, which is super important, of course. But again, having an incremental impact on your product using, Martin Kagan's framework, I would love to see the impact on the financial statement. I don't have it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would love to see it.
But let me tell you something. If you have a startup today and you're not using these tools, if you go in front of this venture capital or a private equity fund, you need to show all these concepts, whether you're sustainability oriented or not. But the canvases, the value prop, the willingness to pay, all that stuff is going to be front and center. And I do work with a lot of PE firms, and they are totally into this. They actually hire their own pricing operating partners, and they ask the same questions, around what we're talking about. So if you now want to get to green financing, and you're going to go to, again, VC and PE firms that are sustainable in nature, you better do that homework as well. Because right now it's booming. Green financing, and sustainability financing is key. So back to the go-to-market strategy here. These are the two canvases we use, Lean Canvas and Business Model Canvas. I hope you all know these. If not, then I would recommend that you get familiar with them. But in both of them, there is a revenue stream box. And from there, you discuss monetization and pricing. So, and it needs to be much more than, again, the wet finger methodology, or I'm guessing, or cost plus. It needs to be robust and convincing.
This one, same thing, and to build up on what we are saying, what cryptocurrency and blockchain especially did to the pricing war, that they completely transformed. We've seen with NFT, where you can get royalties ongoing automatically. Again, if you don't have that into your go-to-market strategies, if you can see that as a value differentiation, that's a huge missed opportunity. So it's kind of too bad for you, because you are building, the next generation of startup. It's even more complex and more complicated, but at the same time, there is so much opportunity to actually get additional pocket of value.
So the wheel, then you look at, really the 3 P's of pricing: people, planet. This is pricing, people, planet. It's definitely front and center today. And the reason we're doing this talk today is to really make sure you're sensitive to this, and not only to pay attention to pricing and monetization in general, but if you have a sustainability component, to really look at this with a financial lens. It cannot just be a cost to serve the company, or a compliance play. It has to be not only valuable to the customers, but valuable to the planet and valuable to your stakeholders and your investors. And you do this really by, making simple, focusing on the right messages, continuing to test and learn, because it's a new space, and we work with companies that, are launching new materials that no one has seen before in the recyclability space. But at the end is, it's all about impact to people, impact to the company, and impact to the planet. And that's what we are here for. You want to take that one, Fabien?
Yeah, that's 2 examples. If we go back here, so streamline, evolving, engage. Quick example about the engaging piece of the pricing. It's what we call with Stephan's 3P pricing, but at this point, most of the companies are doing 2P pricing, which is having actually a score about, so it's price and planet. So you can see that we're starting that now in France, but usually in Northern Europe, they were quite advanced with Foundation Earth, where you can see the planet impact, especially on the food industry. Mano, sorry, it's in French, but the Mano just published actually the fact that they will have a planet score on their products. So quick example of what we call 3P pricing and 2P pricing. Same thing here, especially. So again, it's a French-based example, but Le Slip Français, which is again a way to do engaged pricing with a clear explanation of all the pricing components for a product of Le Slip Français, which is actually like 10 years ago, nobody would have published actually their margin and all their different breakdown of the price. But today, again, coming back to what we discussed at the beginning, consumers are changing. They want transparency. They want to have more information. So actually, that's a great way of doing pricing today and being sustainable. So this is just transparent pricing. But what was interesting, they did some deep dive, especially around the raw material, explaining that it was, sustainable and like a bio cotton, etc., etc. So you can actually deep dive on every single one of those.
Yeah, I will add to this that when you get into pricing for sustainability, you're also getting into ethical pricing, and transparency is key. And and it's a pricing model like any other. This is a typical cost plus a flat fee that it's fair, it's transparent, people know what they're buying, and they understand the contribution. So.
Sorry.
Wrong way.
Pricing?
Yeah, so 3P pricing actually, it's really, so it's, think about the pricing tag. It's when you have your price, that's 1P, the planet. So for example, if you have a planet score or like Mano Mano, they will have like a score, or this one you will have ABCD impact, climate score impact. That's the second P. And then the people. So for example, if on the price tag you have price, your climate score, and your people score. So for example, like in the US, they like to put like $15 per hour. That's a minimum wage, because minimum wage, for example, in Michigan, is like $8, but they want to show that they are paying people $15 an hour, because coming back to ethical pricing. So that's the 3P pricing. Instead of having one price, especially in the B2B world, instead of sending, okay, that's one price, you have actually 3 KPI in your pricing quote. So it's not just pricing, it's the 3P of your company, actually. And then evolving pricing. So coming back to my comments about product development methodology, multi-CAG, same thing. The idea is to start with your learning agenda, what you want to learn, work in sprints. So actually treat your pricing like you would treat your product development, and then having your golden rules and your learning. And that's especially important coming back to the B2B world, because there is this concept of price elasticity. So the more actually sprints you are doing, the more data points that you are collecting, the more mature and advanced you can be with pricing, because you will build actually this price elasticity curve that you can leverage down the line. Another one, same concept that cryptocurrency for the willingness to pay, evolving pricing is trying to try new environments. Metaverse, I'm sure you all see Gucci going into the metaverse pretty hard. What's very interesting, especially in sustainability, is to try actually to branch out from like traditional go-to-market and try a new way. Metaverse could be a good one. We don't really know yet. We will see in the future, but that's an example of evolving pricing, trying new things. On this one, what was interesting for evolving pricing, and I think it was coming back to your question about the B2B world and how do you do the valorization. It's what we see. It's when you ask like the general question, are you actually ready for sustainability effort? Most of the people are saying yes when you ask companies, but when you go one level deeper and you ask, did you train your sales team actually to communicate the sustainability value proposition? Actually, half of them are saying, no, I didn't get trained or not trained enough. Same thing, do they have actually the right tools or guidelines to talk about sustainability engagement? We see that most of the team on the ground, customer facing, they are not ready to communicate those value propositions, to communicate the sustainability engagement. So that's quickly, so in the startup world, it's a little bit less obvious because you don't have those huge actually field sales team, but still that's coming from bigger company where clearly when you ask the sales team, they were completely lost. And it's actually killing all the work that you are doing, because maybe at headquarters, you are, convinced that what you are doing is awesome, that's great about sustainability. But when you go to a store and you ask, nobody is actually telling you that. And that's when you can see those price wars, because the customer will see product A, product B, they don't see the differentiation. So they think it's all about price. And the last one, pricing analytics. Again, I think it's a common theme now. I'm sure you've got it now. We keep a lot. I'm sure you've paid a lot of money to get a dashboard, to get all your, well, you're in B2B, but if you're in B2C, all your Google spend, all your marketing spend, all, et cetera, all the data that you have in your company to have clean information or clean data about that. Same thing, like every time we're asking, I'm sure you have a dashboard about marketing, you have a dashboard about supply chain, you have a dashboard about, whatever. Do you have a dashboard about pricing? No, most of the company don't, which is a shame, because that's where you get actually most of the feedback. You are mentioning, yes, I get some feedback, left and right, but is there a space where you can actually combine all this data, all this insight, all this feedback, and use that going forward? Usually the answer is no, which again is the same, because coming back to this 1%, 11% operating margin, everything is coming from the data that you get about your price. I don't know, Stephanie, if you feel free to jump in, Stefano.
No, it's, I think it's pretty straightforward, but I mean, obviously you need transaction data to have that. And so you can do that in launch mode, but once you're in scaling and acceleration mode, I think leveraging your data, but you need to set it up front. If you have a CRM, if you have a billing system, or pricing optimization system, then that's easy to do. But you can't fly blind. This is where you find the nuggets, frankly.
And maybe just one thing, because what we see in streamlined pricing, if you look like a good example is Tesla. Customer, they're asking very, very simple pricing. They don't want to have the traditional, car company where, like, I remember Porsche, it was like that seek to get all the options. Nobody want that anymore. They want to have, like 3 or 4 prices. So it's great. You need to evolve, but to get actually 3 or 4 prices, super complicated for the companies to do that. And that requires actually a lot of data to understand what my customer wants, what is the best way, how can I make money, what is the best, package that we want to push. And actually that's getting to this kind of like pricing analytics space, which is, again, I think it's quite obvious on this golden nugget one. Do you have any question before we go into the example section? All right. Yeah, so this one is, so we keep having those questions, which is, okay, sounds great. Is it working really? One example that is actually very good, and actually it's an old one, so it's good because we get some data about that. It's the lighting as a service. So it's public lighting as a service. Philips started that, I think it was like 10 years ago, something like that, when actually it was trendy to move from traditional light bulb to LED light bulb, and actually huge success. And it was kind of at the beginning of this sustainability trend, and Philips got quoted a lot. And coming back to our discussion, and they completely changed the way they were perceived on the market. So they were selling actually the light bulb, but they completely changed the pricing approach. They say, we don't want to sell light bulb, we want to sell lighting as a service. And the way they priced it, they said, okay, you are paying a lot in energy costs, and you are paying a lot in maintenance costs. What we will do, we will take care of everything. We will install, we will maintain all your lighting. We will pay the bill, actually the electricity bill. And by the way, we will take an operator fees for doing that. But why you should do it? Because actually it's cheaper for you to do it. And because we will save a lot of energy cost, we can have a healthy operating margin doing that. So completely changing the way they were thinking about pricing. Instead of selling a product, they were selling kind of a service end to end, and huge huge financial benefits doing that. That's kind of what's cool doing that. Is you can see actually the market for this kind of like lighting as a service 2019, so not that long ago. You can see it's roughly like 250 billion. That's global, I think, and you can see in 2027 the expectation from the market. So you can see actually huge financial benefit to challenge the pricing that you can propose. Another one, I'm sure you've seen this one, Michelin. So we got very chauvin. We use Michelin, but actually Bridgestone in the US is doing the same thing now. If you have time, Paolo Ferrari, the CEO of Bridgestone, is talking a lot about this concept, tire as a service. Again, same concept. You don't sell a tire anymore. You sell actually a mile. So you will pay per mile that you are driving, which is actually really interesting, because if you look at the waste, coming back to the circular economy framework we used at the beginning, if you look at tires, most of the people are throwing away their tires with 20 to 25% caoutchouc on top of the tire. So they can still use those tires to do more miles. That's one thing.
Yeah, and actually, it's interesting because these companies are now going and saying, change your tire every 45,000 kilometers, but now it's 60,000 kilometers out of the blue. That, and it's kind of a say, well, you knew that before, right? So there's definitely a push towards longer use of the product. And then you can repair the product, rethread it to make it last even longer.
And again, so there is an interesting article on HBR about that. So if you work with Michelin, you will know that, but Michelin is very secretive about their data and their information. So they don't publish any official information about the profits coming from the tire as a service. What we know is the CEO of Michelin just announced that he's expecting 30% of his revenue coming from services, not just tire as a service, but services in general, which is a good indication that the revenue is actually quite good in this space. Plus, they're talking a lot about all the impacts about sustainability. And this one is probably my favorite. If you know Luc Tierlink, I think it's quite inspirational for you, because he used to be a serial entrepreneur, started a lot of businesses in Belgium, and then he joined Decathlon to launch the We Play Circular, which is kind of a subscription-based model. So you pay a fee per month, and then you can get as many products as you want. There is a limit, so you can see when you pay $20 a month, it's up to 400, up to 1,000, up to 2,000. But what they are saying is, like, instead of selling once a product to someone, so if I want to do snowboard, I will buy my snowboard, and then I will, stop doing the sport, and it will, like stay in my house doing nothing. What they say is like, no problem, we take it back, we repair, we give it to someone else. And by the way, what was super interesting is the profit impact. They realized that it's 3 to 10 times more profitable. And again, it all makes sense because they can control actually all the stock. They can actually sell or rent those products most of the time, and it's all about usage-based. It's same thing Michelin, same thing Decathlon. It's you are selling anything, most of the time it's doing nothing. In the car business, it's the same. Tesla talked about it a lot. They sell a car, you drive your car 1% of the time, 99% of the time your car is in the driveway or in your garage doing nothing. So it's a tragedy for a sustainable world, because we are buying and having a lot of stuff doing nothing. That's really what Decathlon is doing. They are very, very successful with it. I think they will start that in France for the Olympic Games in Paris. So you will see that this model expanding. They will change the name, but that's really an inspiration. Decathlon is super happy.
Yeah, I just want to raise the point here for everyone that a lot of the time when you talk about sustainability, people go straight into green content, right? Is that a product that's natural, but and green, but when you look at the examples we're showing you, is sustainability comes from business model as well, pricing model innovation, like moving from buying products to buying a membership, a usage-based membership. It's totally less waste to landfill. It's totally buying products and not using them. So all that stuff has an impact on the planet, and we need to change that misconception that sustainability is just green. It's not. It's sustainability is about impact, and it's about using the right amount of resources. And for that, you could innovate in your business model. It doesn't have to be just green content. So I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, which again, it's coming back to the last nugget that we wanted to share with you, which is these two things. Usage data is the new oil, and we talked about it. Like, look at Amazon. Amazon is a very interesting example. Maybe it's because I'm working at Google, but the advertising business that they started, it's amazing. Like, they went from nothing to actually being the top 3 advertiser in the world. Netflix is another example. Michelin is an example. So all this data that you get, that's super valuable. Again, to get maybe an example closer to your world, Good to Go. Again, they have such an interesting data pool that they can use and monetize. And usually startups, they don't really think much about that because they start, and at the beginning, you don't have a lot of data. But quickly, in a couple of years, you can have interesting data. And we see it actually with Amazon. The question is not just the volume, but it's also the quality. When you go to Amazon and you look for whatever, like a case for an iPhone or anything, you are like an intentional buyer. So if you have a startup and you can really say, I know that this person is buying something or wants something, it's super valuable. Doesn't mean that you need to know every buyer in France or in Europe or in the world. But if you are in a very niche market, you can really monetize this kind of data. And actually, to share another thing that could be interesting for you in advertising world, we are moving from third-party cookies to first-party data, which is a big opportunity for you as a startup, because now advertiser like the LVMH, etc., Carrefour, we look for real, email address people that are intentional about doing things, which will open actually a lot of opportunities for you. Google is completely changing the business model because we cannot rely on those third-party cookies. So they will aggregate all the different players in the space. So it means that tomorrow you can share with Google your first-party data, so your email address, your phone numbers, and then it can create an audience for Carrefour actually to bid and actually pay for advertising on this space. So I think for a startup, that could be interesting to look at not your core business, but different way actually to monetize all the data that you have, even if it's small at the beginning, which makes sense. I think this one is interesting because let me run the video. Because this one is a very different way of looking at the pricing, and it's actually it's a 2P. It's an example of 2P pricing. So this one is we like this example a lot for two reasons. One is because it's giving you kind of like a true view of like the what's possible around pricing. Is not about the price sticker of a product. You can play around having different currency, having CO2 currency, etc. That's one thing. The second thing is the business results, because let's be realistic, we were still here to make money. So actually, the business result of this campaign is actually very, very good for the brand, for the Felix brand, which is a good thing because again, it means customers are looking for it, they are engaging with it. So it's a good inspiration for all the brands to actually tap into this opportunity and conviction from the user base. And again, coming to what Stephan was talking about, customer segmentation. It's a very specific segment so far. It's probably the early adopters around.
They had started to do that and created labels to evaluate the environmental impact of goods, production impact, and usage impact. And while when they finished that, they had difficulties. Two difficulties. The first thing is that the employees, even though they were trained and people explained why they created this label and this evaluation, the employees had difficulties to understand that and to switch the way they were selling the product. And they, after a few months, they still have not cracked that. And the second difficulty they had is that the customers did not understand it. And because a lot of customers were like, I still want that product. I don't care if it's more. And actually, the product line they created was performing worse than the original product line, and it was really like not a few percentage. It was a huge decrease in terms of sales, and yeah, because of the employees were not did not understand how to sell those products, and the customers did not want those products. But how do you have any feedback to provide about that?
Yeah, I think it's coming back to actually this framework what we missed.
Yeah, because I missed the beginning of the conference.
No, and it's not a repeat at all. But the way you are looking at, you don't do that in silo. I mean, the biggest problem is, I'm sure it's coming from the RSC team saying, okay, we'll do something great. We'll put a label and okay, let's start doing that. And they did that on their end. They didn't communicate with marketing and they didn't communicate it with customers. So actually,
but it's like any innovation. Whether you do a digital innovation or you do a sustainable innovation, you have to do the homework. You have to understand the segmentation. You have to, understand the willingness to pay. Then you have to do your sales enablement activities. Like you said, convincing the salespeople to do this, the employees, and maybe crafting communication campaigns. You missed the beginning, but I've launched a couple of green products in my life, and they failed miserably because we did exactly what Fabien said. We rushed to launch something that was trendy. There's no other choice but doing the homework, like in any innovation.
And let's be realistic. I think we need to, the reality is you will probably fail at the beginning. It is. That means, yeah, sorry to break up the news, but that's why test and learn is so important, because you have two options. You say, okay, I will try something and will probably fail, but then I can, work and make it better, or I do nothing. Most of people are doing nothing today. And again, what's very interesting, and I'm sure we can follow up on this one, is maybe the first attempt didn't work, but I would love to see the third, fourth attempt. And by the way, the customer will respect the fact that you failed and it didn't work out. And that's where, coming back to, okay, all this all this willingness to pay, etc. You can come back to all your pricing analytics to say what didn't work, what should work, and usually you create loyalty with those people. Because it's okay, I didn't get it, but will you stop buying something because they tried something cool and it didn't work out? No, you become more attracted to the brand and more loyal to the brand.
We can ask you another question. It's more
Of
general.
course.
Again, I missed the beginning of the conference, so sorry if it's not relevant. But everything you are showing us today relies on the fact that customers are being more and more keen into paying more or paying the same price, but for more sustainable goods and services. What about if it caps the number of or a percentage of the people who wants to buy better products? Oh, yeah. Someone is blocked outside of the room. So what would happen if people that are willing to pay more or to buy find better goods caps, and let's say it caps at 50% of the market? How does maybe pricing or the company in general, what can it do to still be more efficient for the other half of the market and the customers who don't care about the environment?
You want to take this one, Stephan?
Well, it goes back to segmentation. Again, sustainability and recyclability, for example, is not for everyone, right? So you have to understand your consumer segments or your customer in B2B segments that really will care about that. And you focus on those first until, either there is a top-down governmental effort like you have in France, where they remove packaging in retail stores, right? So you have to bring your own bag. But you're not going to convince people to buy green if they don't care about it, and they're not going to pay a premium. So really is about focusing on the heart of your customer segments that really value your story about sustainability. And maybe your total accessible market is very small at the beginning. Now it goes back to the positioning of your startup. Is your startup 100% in sustainability as the core business model, or is your startup offering a sustainable product or service on top of a core, right, which might not be sustainable? So it just varies. So your total addressable market will be different, your segments will be different, and the willingness to pay will be different. But again, sustainable offering are not for everyone.
Okay, thanks very much.
All right. And just quickly, so in terms of next step. So one other example to show you that it's not only product-based company. We actually, Circular, they are a very good friend of mine, and we actually try to play around. Even for a consulting business, you can play with pricing, and you can see typically they had one ADR, so an average daily rate. They were selling consultants. That's typically what they would do. They would send actually one quote with, okay, that's price, and that's it. And actually what we were discussing about is to create actually tiering into the pricing and offering different things. Typically they have a client in Middle East, and actually, and in Middle East, they really wanted to have the best and the more expensive things. So they developed actually a price tiering with a pricey, where you can see they could be part of an investment fund that they would manage. They could be part in a foundation group that they could be part of to get insight and learnings, etc. And what they realized, because they were thinking, when we do a price quote, we always think we are too expensive because we have a self-centric view. But when you are the customer, you never know. Some people will be price sensitive. Coming back to the segmentation Stephan was mentioning was about, some others will be actually very value driven and will say, no, I want the best. I want, and I'm ready to pay for it. And it's a missed opportunity to sell here when your client is ready to pay here. And that's where actually we go into the pricing psychology. So it's called price decoy. So by the way, when you ask a human being, when you show this kind of setup, there is like 80% of the human, they will take the middle one for a very easy reason. Oh, this is expensive. I don't want to be kind of like not pay enough or will not well be perceived. So I will take the middle one, which is actually very interesting because you are mixing customer feedback, human psychology to get your pricing. So just funny example to show you that it's not just pricing, it's not just tire, could be, like consulting services, everything actually could be part of this reflection about pricing.
Well, even the software as a service is, you could look at the impact of software as a service where, pretty much companies do not have to invest in server. You reduce the space of offices you use, so all that stuff has a carbon impact. So, and really, literally, there's no limit on, evaluating your footprint and how you can reduce the impact. And then the key is what is the value. So you look at HP right here, more and more companies will do ESG reporting and looking at exactly, and because they're required to do that by investors, shareholders, and eventually government bodies. But they're showing, so if you look at the sustainability report of many companies, some of them will report in a very nice way their impact. And here HP shows, how do we deliver value, right? And all the value created, financial value, product value, natural, the environment, and then the social impact. Now, this is, I would say, from a basic reporting of ESG to more an advanced report, I would say this one is more advanced because it's value oriented. The next step then is really looking at this and say, what does that mean? The so what for the company as far as financial value they bring to customers, to stakeholders, to shareholders. So that's a very good start. But I'm looking at now green products, for example, recycled content in HP computers or in HP servers. What kind of plastic are they using? What kind of steels are they using? And companies are coming up with quote unquote sustainable steel. So what I want to say with this is we see a lot more progress being made in the value calculations, right? And then in the impact over time of all these sustainable activities. What is missing is the link to pricing. So, but I'm very encouraged when I see reports like this, and there's best-in-class companies like Schneider Electric, HP, Interface, Decathlon that are really taking that seriously and are really able to monetize in front of the customers. And size doesn't matter. My view is obviously we're showing you big companies because they publish and it's easy to find the information. But for a startup, you could do that from the get-go. At the heart of your company, when you develop it and you scale it, you could right away look at your impact, develop new pricing models for a greater impact to the planet, to the people. There's no limit. So I wanted to share that with you guys.
So maybe a quick question, if you want, having heard all of that, does that bring you some ideas, or does that inspire you to do things differently? I don't know if you want to share. No, nobody.
Personally, I don't have any product to sell, but I will definitely try to share those info to the maximum number of startup I can accompany, because it's a must know, I guess. I think.
For sure.
Well, you have no choice. If eventually, especially in Europe and in the US, in California and maybe New York State, not on Republican state, because it's a different story. But you're gonna have no choice. If you want to play in the ecosystem, you're gonna have to show something, right? So we're not talking out of the blue to revolutionizing your offer and your value prop to be 100% sustainable. We're asking, pay attention to what's needed. In order to play in your ecosystem, you have to be sustainable, calculate your impact, and then look at what you're doing. And is there a way, in changing the raw materials, changing the type of setup we have, the way we communicate. And at the end of the day, you could charge maybe 1% more for some customers because they'll ask you, hey, what do you do as far as impact or carbon footprint? And then you have an offer ready and you could charge a little bit more. That's what we're saying. Or you move to a subscription model, and for example, or usage-based model, and you could promote your footprint reduction. So it's kind of a different way of thinking.
So maybe as next steps, because we are right on time actually.
Yeah.
5 more minutes. If you are interested by this topic, actually with Stephan, we are actually organizing in Paris, so you have no excuse. The first Pricing for the Planet annual summit. So you have the information. It will be a mix of some startup, a lot of VCs are coming, and some big company. We have Michelin, Thales, Schneider Electric. So you're welcome to join. You have the link here to register. We have limited seats, so I think that first come, first serve. But again, you are more than welcome. We will deep dive into this concept of monetization of sustainability. We will talk about pricing in sustainability, sustainable pricing, pricing for sustainability, all the concepts. So that's one thing. Happy to see you there. And then, so it will be.
You haven't told them the magic word. It's free. That's a magic word.
So yeah, absolutely. So you can register, it's free, and we can just show up, and you will have all the speakers, so you can register here. So Stephan and I will be in Paris April 4th. So we wanted actually, if you are interested, if you want to go one level deeper to talk about your startup in, very specifically, the day before April 3rd, because we will be both in Paris, we are doing this Pricing for the Planet Startup Bootcamp. So you have the link here, and what we will do during this full day is going one step at a time and really help you, getting the value, the centric value model, getting the business canvas, talk about your go-to-market strategy, and really do that at the group. So it's only 6 startups because we want to keep that as a small group for 2 reasons. Those 6 startups will help you actually challenge your status quo. We will do that as well. And at the same time, it's not a big group, so we can stay actually focused on your startup as well. So again, you're more than happy to have you on this one. And you have our contact information here, our website information, and our phone number right there. So I guess you are mostly in France, but if you are in the US, you can call directly Stephan. And you have an online booking if you want to have, to book I think it's 30 or 45 minutes with Stephan or myself to see if you have specific question about, one thing or the other.
Yeah, and connect with us on LinkedIn. Follow us. We can follow you back, but we are creating we're going to be publishing quite a bit of new stuff over the next 2 months, including an ebook on pricing for sustainability. So stay connected with us, and LinkedIn is the place to be.
And yeah, maybe the last one for the end, the last golden nugget, which I think it's quite obvious now about the importance of pricing, and actually at the end of the day, when your customer is buying, it's all about the price. So if you don't do the extra effort and legwork to do a price right, you're probably losing a ton of money, which for startups is quite important. And Q&A, if you have any question, let us know. Happy to take those questions. I heard a couple of
Yeah, actually, it's Joachim. I hope I pronounced his name well. He wrote a few comments, which are pretty long, so I'm not sure that's that can be shared today. But I will copy and paste them and send it to you guys, so maybe you can interact with Joachim as a follow-up, because it's really long.
Happy to. And so we will. If you have any feedback, happy to get your point of view. If one thing was interesting, another thing was not, feel free to tell us. Hopefully we'll do a better job next time. So super open to have your feedback.
We're also a startup, so we need to learn.
It was super interesting. Thank you very much for the presentation. We have something to say. It would be interesting to have a point of view on B2B, more B2B examples, and more B2B point of view, maybe.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to think about it because so Philips was a B2B example. Most of their clients were actually Michelin is a B2B example because they are not doing that for B2C. It's not for like everyday driver. It's only for fleet.
Okay.
So it's a B2B example.
Yeah, I mean, I could name IKEA. I could name like a wood producer I work with in Portugal called Sonaia Rocco and their sustainability efforts. I could name BA Glass, which is a glass container, jars and bottles, or extremely advanced in sustainability and recyclability, end of life management. Interface on the carpet side is the B2B example I mentioned, and there's a huge amount of examples. I could tell you they're all successful, but I don't. It's like digital transformation. The proof is in the pudding, and the pudding right now is not as good as we would like it to be, right? And so we have a long way to go. Now the B2C example are more visible because you're online, and the B2B there's a lot of the success stories are a lot of the smoke and mirror that we call that in the US. The nice communication campaign, but what's behind it? Can we truly see the impact, right? So to be discussed.
All right.
Perfect.
Well, it's 4 a.m. for me. I'm going to take another coffee.
And maybe go to sleep, right?
Maybe go back to sleep, but it was a pleasure being with you today. Thanks for people online, and we'll see you on the web, on the matrix.
And maybe on April 1st.
On April 4th.
Fourth. So yeah, first is the bootcamp and fourth is the event.
Third is a boot camp and fourth.
I'm totally
It's
wrong.
in April.
So
It's in April.
Yeah.
it's written in the slides. So yeah, the slides are
and
the right date.
We'll send you a PDF, so you will have all the slides. I think the link should work. I will make sure that they work. So you have everything. Well, thanks a lot for being here.
You.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Stephan.
Thank you. Have a good day. Night.